Hey, Mike. There were some reports about a back situation. What did you guys go through to just make sure? He said it was all fine. What process did you guys go through, and how did that trade up come together?
Yeah, the audio is not very good there. I think you asked about his back and how the trade up came
Yeah.
up. Is that correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, about the back, we had scouts at his pro day. He had some stuff he wore on his back. We were very thorough. We checked it all out. Our doctors gave him a more than a pass grade, a high level grade. So we had zero issues about his back. That's first and foremost. Number two, the trade up. In all honesty, I was thinking about trying to come up and get him at the end of the first round yesterday. And I was stunned that he was still there. So I knew Dallas, I think they were at 44, if I want to say. We were at 48, and I thought Dallas was going to take him at 44. So we started working the phones. We got a hold of San Francisco. They did a great job. We spent a lot of time on the phone with San Francisco trying to get to the right deal. They wanted a pick I didn't want to give them. We ended up compromising back and forth. Believe it or not, a seventh round pick was important to get back to me. So anyway, probably more details than you guys care, but we went from 48 to 43. We got ahead of Dallas, and we felt great about that. He's our number one rated safety. We had him with a big grade on our board. So we got a guy with a first round grade at 45 in the second round. So we were pretty excited.
Yeah, Mike, it sounds like you're probably sprinting, beating your personal best 40 to get that card in there on him. But practically speaking, what's the fit in Gus Bradley's defense for him? And it seems like he's kind of a leader, has some leadership qualities that could probably be felt pretty immediately in that young secondary.
Yeah, a couple things. We have some pretty good connections at TCU, and everybody down there banged the table for this young man, not just as a football player, but as a foundation type human being and player. And that was important to us. So we think he's intelligent enough to run the defense back there. We think he brings a foundation background into our locker room, which is important. And then as far as the skill set, it's pretty cool because if, you guys know a little bit about Gus's defense, and if you go back to even Seattle, it was Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, and they both had kind of predetermined roles. It wasn't two safeties that were inverting back and forth, and it really was a post safety and a box safety. And in our defense, John Abram is going to be that box safety, and Jeff Heath at this point is our post safety. But Morig is a guy that we think can step in and compete at post safety. He had 7 picks in his career, 24 post PBUs, great range, tackles. So he's going to be a free safety. And we think ultimately for a long period of time, he and John could be a pretty interesting tandem.
Hi, Mike. Levi Damien, USA Today. You just mentioned Cam Chancellor, and that's who Divine Diablo said he models his game after, even changed his number to his at Virginia Tech. I was wondering if, being that Gus Bradley coached Chancellor, if that name ever came up with regard to Diablo.
You know what? It was more about our linebacker coach, Richard Smith, jumping on the table and saying this is a starting will linebacker in the NFL. So at 227 pounds, he ran 4.42. He's a looser athlete than you would think for that size. We do think he could play strong safety, but the allure to us is that he can play will linebacker. He can do what Gus's defense demands at the will linebacker position. He could probably even match up with some tight ends in our division and do some things creatively. I think if you look last year at some of the players that went in the second round that were kind of like him, the Chin kid went to Carolina in the second round and became their starting will. And New England took a kid in the second round from a small school. I'm forgetting his name right now, but they used him in a bunch of ways that were kind of cool. They used him at safety. They used him kind of a dime linebacker, a little bit at nickel. So I think the league is changing to the point where you don't necessarily have to define what the position is anymore on defense. You're looking for big guys that can run, and that's what he is.
Mike, through 4 picks, 2 things stand out with all of them: a bunch of position flexibility and high character guys. Can you talk about those 2 keys on your draft board, sir?
Yeah, we're pretty excited about where we are today. Leatherwood, we spent a lot of time, as I told you guys yesterday, and really vetted him, and we feel like there is tackle guard versatility. He's going to start out at right tackle, but there's ultimately versatility there. There's intelligence. There's a team captain. There's a guy that started 41 games in the SEC. So then you go to the safety, Morig, again, a captain. A guy that's a leader, that played a lot of football at a very high level, a special teams player. All 3 guys we got today, can play some special teams too. So, Maury comes in and he'll be able to compete day one for our free safety spot. Malcolm Koontz is a guy that you guys haven't asked me about Koontz yet, and this guy at Buffalo has an innate skill and ability to rush the quarterback. And he's 6'0", he's 249 pounds. He's got long arms, but wait till you see him rush the quarterback. He's got a real chance to do some things that are kind of cool and will help complement Ngakoue. So now we've got 2 kind of guys that can bend the edge with some speed off the edge, and that's what we didn't have the last 2 years, is that bendy guy that can threaten you off the edge with speed. We've got the big, powerful guys. We didn't have the bendy edge guys. And he also can play special teams. Then Diablo, another high-quality guy that can play a couple different positions. 17 special teams tackles at Virginia Tech. Ball production. The 2 guys on the back end, I think, had 14 interceptions between them. Let's face it, we haven't rushed the quarterback and we haven't turned the football over. Those are 2 things, if you want to be a good defense, you have to do. We have not done it, and we think these 3 guys can help us do it.
Hey, Mike, it's Tashawn Reed from The Athletic. You mentioned in that trade with the 49ers, it was important for you to get a 7th-round pick back. What's the key to finding value with those late-round picks where it gets harder to find and identify talent?
It's a couple things. We have what we call a make-it grade, a certain number grade where we believe you can't give the guy a grade, that particular grade, unless you think he makes our team. A make-it grade. And we think we ought to be getting make-it players in the 7th round. And that's hard, right? But we believe in it. And the way the board was falling today, we loved it. I didn't think that Koontz and Diablo would get to us at 79 and 80. I really didn't. So we were ecstatic about that. But the 7th round pick, in addition to having a make-it grade, it's 1 less guy you got to go out in undrafted free agency and go guarantee P5 money to, and with 32 teams chasing the same pool of players. So if you can get a guy in the 7th round, draft him at a position that's difficult to find after the draft, to me, it's almost like gold.
Hey, Mike, I want to go back to the start of the 3rd round. What was going through your mind when the first 2 safeties went off the board?
The first safety was the Oregon kid, and so I was a little bit surprised to see that. We liked him, but I didn't think he was going to go for a little while. So all of a sudden, these 2 guys go off the board, and I'm kind of looking at my guys in the room saying, hey, we could have a chance here at TCU. Let's see what happens. Let's play it out a little bit. Let's get on the phone. I'd been on the phones early this morning talking to teams about just such an eventuality, if we needed to move up. And I had talked to San Francisco this morning about 43. So I knew they were agreeable or amenable to a potential trade up. And so that's ultimately what happened. We talked to 3 or 4 teams in that range, and the closer, I kept saying he's got to go. He's got to go. And then I'm like, wait a minute, Dallas is at 44. We got to get ahead of them. We started calling more teams. And ultimately, we're able to cut the deal with San Fran.
Mike, something that you were just saying is that no one has asked you about Malcolm Koontz yet. So when you think about him, who in the organization was that a Marinelli guy? Was that a Bradley guy? Who really pushed to go get Koontz? And do you think he can be primarily defensive end, or do you see him being over at linebacker or something?
He's an edge rusher. He's a defensive end. his value will be on third down. He's a natural pass rusher. He's got a toolbox that you'd be surprised to see from a kid from Buffalo. I mean, he's got outside slip. He's got a spin move. He's got a fake spin move. I was teasing him about on the phone a couple of weeks ago. Like, you don't see many college guys with a fake spin move. But in the building, it was unanimous. And I'm not going to lie to you. The first tape I put on, it was a little bit like Josh Jacobs when I first got here. I went to see Gruden. I said, Coach, there's a kid that reminds me of some people in this league, and you're going to laugh at me. And I just said, you got to watch the tape. Okay, he's a different kind of pass rusher. He's got a natural slip. John got on board. Marinelli pushed him up high. Like, he loved him. Gus Bradley loved him. So really the question was whether or not to take him at 79. The question was whether or not he was going to get there.
Mike, you mentioned Richard Smith, your linebacker coach. Ron Miles is back there in the secondary. Gus, Rod. This felt like a day that they had some influence or impact, as did all of you guys, obviously. But how has it been working with those guys and the kind of the synergy that you guys have already kind of created? And today was an obvious signal of that.
Yeah, I was just down on the second floor hanging with the coaching staff, and they were excited. They were ecstatic. And what was really cool about it is it's what it should be. In other words, the scouts spend 11 months living with these guys, working, trying to get to the point where we can put a board together and a game plan each morning. And then we bring the coaches in for like the last 4 to 6 weeks, and they work their tails off. And in a building like this, which is coach driven, they put grades on players. They come in, they work with us. We put our coaches together with our scouts and watch a lot of tape together. And we come together, and if there's a disconnect on a value of a player, we sit down and watch film. We don't say, well, the scout said this, and the coach, no, let's sit down and figure it out. We're all football guys. And it's been awesome. I mean, there's been a genuine feeling on the entire staff, offense and defense, that we're all in this together. The scouts feel included, which is critical. It's not always so in every building. The coaches just came up and thanked us. I got a great text message from Gus Bradley right before I came in here with you guys. So I can't emphasize enough how appreciative I am of our coaching staff.
Hi, Mike. So was it your plan like all along, after you've addressed the tackle position in the first round, to really hit the defense hard for day two?
Really, I think what you have to do is you have to be fair to your board. You have to trust your board. I'm old school, and I believe that. And the way the board fell, just to give you an example, I think we had 10, what we call 10 blue players, which are the top of the draft, and seven of them were on offense. And then there were some quarterbacks also. So we kind of knew that the first 15 or 16 picks of the draft were going to be 11 or 12 offensive players, because 7 of the 10 blues were offense plus some of the quarterbacks. So, and that's exactly what happened, right? I mean, there were 11 or 12 of the first 15 or 16. And then the red players, which we had a group of, was 75% defense. So in my mind, to match this draft up, as we work from kind of the middle of the first through the third round, there was going to be a really strong group of defensive players. And let's face it, I mean, we need defense. We're not a very good defensive football team. And I think our needs met up and matched what was going to be available today. So in my own mind, to answer your question, yeah, this was going to be a defensive day.
Hey, Mike, 4 picks down, 4 to go, but there's a huge gap between pick number 80 and your next scheduled one at 162. How busy do you think you're going to be trying to get back up in there to get some more value tomorrow?
Well, you never know, right? I mean, we got 2 5s, a 6, and a 7, and we were ecstatic, as I said, at how the board fell today. I missed that pick 121. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I'm already feeling like I lost a child. But pick number 21 was pretty cool. We don't have it. We might work our way up there. You never know. I mean, and it's funny because you sit with Coach Gruden. He's like, Mike, why don't you move them all up? Go pick them, use them all, and move up. Coach loves specific players. And I love to kind of play the board and try to figure out what the best leverage is for us. So we're going to go into tomorrow with a good plan, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, Mike, Jerry McDonald, you mentioned yesterday at the time of the Leatherwood pick, you mentioned that it was controversial and that you knew there would be some negative pushback. And then, so there's a whole night or a whole day of, oh my God, what are the Raiders doing? And then today you get Moehrig and it's flipped around and my God, I can't believe they got Moehrig is kind of the review. And I guess my question is, how cognizant are you going into the draft of what other people are saying about who is ranked where? And I don't imagine you and Daniel Jeremiah talk prospects anymore, even though you're friends. I mean, do you pay attention to that stuff? Does it amuse you? Does it educate you? Or do you ignore it and just go with your own stuff?
I ignore it 100%, except for the fact that I think it's part of my job to understand league value. Okay, so if you're going to move up or down the board, you've got to know what league value on players are. And to be honest, and this might sound weird, but my background at NFL Network really helps me with that. I can tell when a player probably is going to be a third, fourth kind of round player. I mean, that's what I did for 18 years. I studied all 32 teams. So I have a fairly good feel for what league value is on a player versus what we consider to be Raider value. Okay, so Leatherwood had a big grade for us. And, you know, the announcers, I guess, didn't like it last night, and I knew it was going to be controversial, but I really don't care. I mean, in all honesty, the only thing I do care about is, you know, when my family gets hurt. You know, that's the only thing but that's part of the job. It doesn't bother me at all. And when my son or my daughter's upset, I'm upset. But outside of that, no.
Hey, Mike, I want to go back to Koontz. What were the comps you had when you went to Gruden with the tape?
I don't even want to put an expectation on the kid, but really, and Daniel Jeremiah said it tonight on the telecast. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I watched the film, and in my notes it says Ngakwe, University of Maryland, and that's what I saw. And they play a little different kind of style, but very similar size and an innate feel to get to the quarterback. And so I think it's fairly ironic that they're now going to be teammates.